Okay, welcome to Solid Ground tonight. We might be a little down in numbers. I think people started their spring break a little early, but that's okay. I was in the business school today, and I was going, where is everybody? And so that's fine. We'll have more of a kind of an intimate time here. If you can see on your sheet, did everybody get a sheet? Let's make sure everybody got a sheet. Anybody that needs a sheet, I think the brothers can help you. Okay, could we just read the title? Okay, that's on the sheet. Let's just all read it together. Ready? Go.
God's desire for a dwelling place.
Good. And then let's read that verse at the top. Okay, Exodus 25:8. Ready? Go.
And let them make a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell in their midst.
Okay, and then could we read it again and emphasize for me when you hit that part? Okay, ready? Go.
And let them make a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell in their midst.
Okay, sisters, could you read it like that?
And let them make a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell in their midst.
Right, okay, and in a minute you're going to see why I'm emphasizing this for me. Okay, I wanted Praise to come up. Is Praise here? Yeah, and she's going to be my assistant here to help write on the board. So here's the question I have, and this is based on all the different things we've gone through in the past Solid Ground, and that is, what did Jehovah do for us when the children of Israel were in Egypt? Just raise your hand. I mean, I'm not going to put you on the spot or anything. Just tell me, what were some of the things that Jehovah did for Israel when they were in Egypt? Anybody?
The 10 plagues.
10 plagues, very good. You can put that up there, Praise. Anything else? Say again? Okay, we haven't quite got to that yet. I'll let you go when we get to the sea. This is just when they were there in Egypt before they, started walking toward the Red Sea. Okay? Anything else? Yeah?
God sent Moses.
Say again?
God sent Moses.
God sent Moses, very good. Anything else? Anybody remember the lamb? The Passover lamb? That's like a real important part, I mean, they took the blood and they put it on the doorposts and the side posts of the house, and the death angel passed over when he saw that blood. That's where we get the term Passover. The angel passed over when he saw the blood. Okay, then, sister, we'll go back to you. Then they were strengthened by eating the lamb. And then where did they go?
They passed the Red Sea.
Right, past the Red Sea. So that was amazing. And was there anything else about the Red Sea beside them passing through? Did anybody get drowned in the Red Sea?
Oh, yes. Egypt.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, very good. So negatively, all the Egyptians that were chasing them got drowned in the Red Sea. Positively, children of Israel went through the Red Sea. Okay, now how about we go to the wilderness? What did God do for them in the wilderness?
He provided the pillars of cloud and fire to guide them.
Cloud and fire, okay, that was for guidance. Very good. Anything else in the wilderness? Manna. Okay, what is this? Manna. Okay, anything else beside manna? Water, where did it come from?
From the rock.
Right, the water out of the rock. Okay, so he took care of their needs, the guiding, the food, the water. So all the way through, God was doing something for them, just time after time after time. Then all of a sudden you come to Exodus 25:8 and you hit a pivot, a real turning point in the book of Exodus. And that turning point is, now I've done all these things for you. Now I want you to do something for me. So do you see why I emphasize for me? So let's read it again and emphasize that for me. Ready? Go.
And let them make a sanctuary for me.
Okay, a little stronger on the for me. Okay, ready? Let's do that again.
And let them make a sanctuary for me.
Yes, much better. Okay, go ahead, keep going.
That I may dwell in their midst.
Right. Now, I need something. I've done all this for you in Egypt, through the Red Sea, in the wilderness. Now I want you to do something for me. And what that is I need a dwelling place. So, we have the first, Roman numeral is, before we read this Roman numeral, I need some helpers. This will be very interactive. I need some that will read some verses, okay? So first of all, I need someone to read John 1:14. Who will take care of John 1:14? You don't have to read it now, but when I get to it. Okay, you have John 1:14, great. Okay, how about John 2:19 through 21? You got it? Very good. Okay, 1 Corinthians 3:16. Who can do that? 1 Corinthians 3:16. Okay, thank you, sister. Okay, then Ephesians 2:22. Who can do Ephesians 2:22? You got it? Great, thank you. And then 1 Timothy 3:15. 1 Timothy, thank you, very good. And then 1 Peter 2:5. Who has 1 Peter? Who can do 1 Peter 2:5? Okay, Estrella, very good. Okay, and when I get to it, we'll have you. But I want us all to read Roman numeral 1, and then we're going to read Isaiah 66, 1 and 2. So let's read Roman numeral 1. Ready, go.
The desire of God's heart, a mutual dwelling place of God and man, man in God and God in man.
Okay, and now let's read Isaiah 66, 1 and 2. Ready, go.
Thus says Jehovah, heaven is my throne, and the earth is a footstool for my feet. Where then is the house that you will build for me? And where is the place of my rest? But to this kind of man will I look, to him who is poor and of a contrite spirit.
Okay, so you have three things here. You have heaven is what? Heaven is what? My throne, okay? And then what is the earth? Okay, and then he says, where then is the house? So he has a throne, he has a footstool, but he doesn't have a house. He says, where then is the house that you'll build for me? And where is the place of my rest? And this is like God's heart just being open to us to see what is really in his heart and what he needs and what he wants is to have a resting place on the earth. And then he answers, but it answers not in a full way of revelation, but at least you get the point. But to this kind of what? Man. So you have heaven, you have earth, and you have man. And man is what he's looking for. And then he says this, to him who is poor and of a contrite spirit. So basically, what's being revealed here is that God in his divinity wants to live, rest, and dwell in humanity. So I'm going to say that again because I don't want you to miss this. God in his divinity wants to rest, dwell, and live in humanity. This is what he wants. Okay, in other words, living in divinity is not his goal. His goal is to live in humanity. This is a big, big thing, okay? So you just consider, okay? When the New Testament opens up and Jesus is there, what is one of the first things he says about Jesus? Okay, who has John 1:14? Yeah, could you stand up and read it, John 1:14?
The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father.
Okay, so the Word became flesh, and I think in some versions it says tabernacled among us. In other words, right at that point, as soon as Christ is there on the scene, he brings in this matter of God's dwelling place. In other words, he got his dwelling place in one man, in the Lord Jesus Christ. But he doesn't stop there. So who's got John 2:19 through 21?
Jesus answered them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up.
Okay.
The Jews then said, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days? But he was speaking about the temple of his body.
Right. So eventually, all of a sudden now there's a multiplication, an enlargement from one man being his dwelling place to he's speaking now of the temple of his body, which includes all the members of the body of Christ. These are now part of his dwelling place. Okay, then you go to 1 Corinthians 3:16. Who has that? Okay, good.
Do you not know that you are the temple of God and the Spirit of God dwells in you?
Okay, now think about that. Do you not know? Hey, Hannah Grace, do you not know that you're the temple of God?
I know, Brother Neil.
Amen.
5 years, I know. You're talking about.
And the Spirit of God dwells in you? Okay, here's something you might not know, Hannah Grace, and that is this. You know, when we read this verse, many of us read it in a kind of an individual way. You know, I'm a temple, you're a temple, he's a temple, she's a temple. But in the footnote it says, the temple of God, listen to this, refers to the believers collectively. Okay, the temple of God refers to the believers collectively in a certain locality. So eventually, there it is. The actual temple of God on the earth is the believers collectively as a church in a locality. Okay, then who has Ephesians 2:22? Okay, go ahead.
In whom you also are being built together into a dwelling place of God in spirit.
Okay, so he's talking to the Ephesian believers and he says, you also are being built together into a habitation of God in spirit. Okay, then who has 1 Timothy 3:15? Okay, good, thank you.
But if I delay, I write that you may know how one ought to conduct himself in the house of God, which is a church of the living God.
Okay, so
Pillar and base of the truth.
So the house of God is the church of the living God. And then finally, who has 1 Peter 2:5?
You
Okay.
yourselves also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house into a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ.
Okay, so Estrella, let me ask you a question. Are you a individual stone or are you a built-up stone?
Built up stones.
You know, one time, I'll tell you a little story. I don't think Jose Luis is here, so I'll tell a little story on Jose Luis. So Jose Luis was probably about your age, Estrella, and he was there in the meeting. And the brother who was sharing asked Jose, he said, Jose, what are you? And he says, Brother Don, I am a living stone. And not bad, not bad. He hadn't been around us much. But eventually another brother came up to him and just said, well, that's very good, Jose, that you're a living stone, but you're a living stone for the building. We always have to add that on. So Estrella, what are you?
I am a living stone for the building.
Yes, very good. Okay, and so, you know, you have to see how special every one of you sitting in this room is. I just want you to see how special you are. You are not like other creatures. Okay, now, this might sound funny, but I want to ask, how many of you have 1, 2, 3, have a dog where you live at home? Not here in Austin, but where you live. How many have a dog? Okay, I figured there'd be a lot of dog lovers here. Okay, so, brother, what's your name in the yellow?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, okay, Jeffrey, let me ask you, what's the name of your dog?
BB.
What is it? BB?
BB, yeah.
Like a bee, BB.
Yeah.
Okay, BB. Okay. Okay. You know, Jeffrey, listen. BB, you know, it's true, might be man's best friend, but you are God's dwelling place. And so you need to go home, Jeffrey, and say, BB, I need to have a talk with you. And I know some of you, you won't admit it, but I know some of you, when you're at home, you talk to your dog. I know you do. And so you need to go home and say, BB, I need to have a talk with you. You are man's best friend, but I want to tell you, I'm special. I'm privileged because I am a dwelling place of God. See, this is totally different. No animal, nothing on the earth has that privilege but mankind to be a dwelling place of God. This is a great thing. And I would say this, you know, what God is interested today in is not an individual Christian that would go somewhere and do a great work of power. I know that some of the young ones, they think, well, you know, I'd like to go to a foreign country and, like maybe in Africa, and I would, beat my clothes on a rock and wash my clothes that way and just live out there on the land, and I would be out there preaching the gospel, and it's very, very individualistic, Let me tell you this. God is not interested in you doing an individual work of power. What he's interested in is that you would see, hey, Estrella, you would see you're only a stone and not more than a stone. You have to see that, Estrella. You're not more. Hey, Sarah, you've been meeting with us, do you see you're a stone, Sarah? Can you say, Brother Neil, I am a living stone for God's building? Why don't you say that? Yeah, okay, I'll say it slow. Brother Neil. What?
There's two Sarahs.
Okay, I'm pointing at, okay, the newer Sarah. Okay, the newer Sarah. I'm sorry, that was definitely not my intention to get everybody mixed up, but you guys are sitting right next to each other there. So the new Sarah, could you tell me what you are? Yeah, could you say a little louder?
I am a living stone
And what are you a living stone for?
for the building.
Yes, absolutely. See, this is a revelation that we must have. We're different. We are different from every creature on the earth because we have the very God of the universe living in us and dwelling in us. And we're not only individuals, but we're being built up with others. Okay, but listen to this. The Bible doesn't end there. You know what it also says? It says, the Bible says that God himself is man's dwelling place. Okay, so, you think about a dwelling place. It's a person's basic and the highest need of a person is their dwelling place. A person that has everything yet lacks a dwelling place, can he have genuine rest? So, I asked Josh before the meeting to come on up. And this is, a typical UT student, okay? And I just wanted to make sure that he has everything, okay? Okay, so typical UT student, okay? Definitely has a water bottle, right? Okay, I'm sure if you have your water bottle with you right now, lift it up. If you have your water bottle, lift up your water bottle. Okay, see, I know you have to have a water bottle. Okay, very good. Okay, a typical UT student has the laptop with him. Wow, this is heavy. Okay, it has a laptop, right? And it has headphones. Now put your headphones on. Okay. Oh, he's got two. Okay. Okay, so he's got his laptop, he's got his headphones. Now, do you have a phone? Okay, he's got a phone. Do you have a watch? Oh, very nice watch. Okay, so, he's all equipped to go to class, all set. Okay, and his wallet, I won't ask how much money's in there. But okay, think about this. He has all these things. He's got the laptop, he's got really nice headphones, he's got, his phone, he's got a nice watch, he's definitely got his water bottle, okay? And we ask him, I want you to go out on 6th Street and I want you to get on the sidewalk and that's where you're going to sleep tonight. I just want you to think about that. You think, hey, Hannah, do you think he's going to have any rest? I think, Hannah, would you be restful there? Sleeping on 6th Street? No. Don't say yes. Okay, in other words, you can have all these things, but without a dwelling place, there's no rest. You think of all the different things. I wrote down some of the things that God gives to us, okay? He gives so many provisions. Like, for instance, does God ever fight for us? Sure he does. In the prayer and everything like that, he fights for us. Some of us, it was hard to get to the college conference. Let me tell you, on the way to the college conference on Wednesday, I was driving down 1st Street, downtown. I was near the courthouse, not the courthouse, the place, where they have, their meetings down there on 2nd Street. I was minding my own business, just going straight, and this big, huge truck plows into me and totaled my car. And I'm fine, but the car is gone. They actually picked it up this weekend and towed it away. It was totaled. Okay, you know what? My first reaction was, it's going to be a great college conference. That was my reaction. You know, I realized the enemy is fighting. The enemy is fighting, and I knew that there's going to be a good college conference. It's okay. I had to go buy a used car, but that's okay. God got something in that college conference. And I think any of you that were there, you know that something happened intrinsically in your being because you were there, and yet we had God fighting for us. I know some of you probably it was hard to get there, but the Lord prevailed and got us there. Okay, then think of the other things that he gives us. Peace, life, power, light. You know, so many different provisions. But here's an honest question I wanted to ask you. Has any Christian outside of CSOC come up to you and said this: God is not only your peace, he's not only your rest, he's not only love, he's not only strength, he's not only life, he's not only this. God is your dwelling place. Has anybody ever said that to you? God is your dwelling place. Okay, we're his dwelling place, but God is our dwelling place. And look at these verses here. These verses are just great. Okay, Psalm 91. How about the sisters read that? Mm-hmm. You have been our dwelling place. This is Moses speaking. You have been our dwelling place in all generations. Brothers, 33:27 of Deuteronomy. Ready, go.
God of old is your habitation.
God of old is your habitation. Okay, together on Jeremiah 57b. Ready, go.
Because they have sinned against Jehovah, the habitation of righteousness, even Jehovah, the hope of their fathers.
Right, so just 3 verses there, but you really see God is our dwelling place. Okay, and then I have 2 verses right after that shows that, you have both aspects. We dwell in God, God dwells in us. It's a mutual dwelling place. And in John 14:20, this is referring to the day of his resurrection. It says, in that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Do you see the mutual dwelling place there? You and me, and I and you. And then John 14:23 says, Jesus answered and said to him, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make an abode with him. Okay, so eventually it's a mutual dwelling. We dwell in God, God dwells in us. And that really is the true rest. It's like this. I don't know if you remember the story of Cain, but when Cain murdered his brother, and eventually he said he went out from the presence of the Lord. Do you remember that, where it says he went out from the presence of the Lord? And it says he became a vagabond. And eventually, no dwelling place. Once he went out from the presence of the Lord, he just was homeless. And this is the way we are. When we're taking a little vacation from being with the Lord. How do you feel when you take a little vacation? Hey, Hannah, don't take a vacation over spring break.
All right, I promise. I will. I promise.
Okay, we can all check with her when she comes back from spring break.
I promise.
Okay, listen. Sometimes we take a little vacation from the presence of the Lord, and that's when we get in trouble. That's really when we get in trouble. That's when there's not that house to protect us, to keep us, and everything. God's presence is our dwelling place. Okay, so in the next section, the 5 stages of God's dwelling place. You see that on the outline. So there's 5 stages, and I'll go through these fairly quick, but I have something to say on some of them. So first of all, he dwelt in the heavens. And it says in 1 Kings 8:39a, then hear from in the heavens your dwelling place. Okay, so it says, then hear in the heavens your dwelling place. Okay, now let me ask this question. Yes, at a certain period, the heavens were his dwelling place, but what does he want to do on the earth? You know, there's a very famous prayer in Matthew 6, and he prayed something about the earth. Do you remember what he prayed in Matthew 6 about the earth? It says, you know, it says something like this, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. I think you can memorize, you know this one, right? On earth as it is in heaven. In other words, his desire is that his will and his glory would be something on the earth. And so for this, he needs man. Okay, but what happened after, you know, he created Adam, he created Eve? What happened? Man just steadily began to fall. I mean, if you can trace it, there were several stages of that fall. You have, of course, the first one was with man himself, you know, taking in the fruit of the tree of knowledge. But then you have Cain, and what did he do? He murdered his brother. Second fall. And then after that, you have, you know, the problem with what happened during Noah's time. And eventually, man fell to such an extent that he was now mingled with the fallen angels. And God had no choice but to destroy that whole race. And then finally, they you know, the water subsided, man started to multiply again, and then they built a tower named Babel. And they said, we're here to make a name for ourselves. And eventually they were in rebellion against God. God came down and confounded the languages. And that was the fourth fall of man. Listen, at that point in time, God gave up on the created race. Okay, so I just want you to realize the fall was not just a simple, he ate this tree called the tree of knowledge, but it was progressive. There was something progressive there until finally God said, I have to give up on this. I cannot use this anymore. And so then he started with the called race in Genesis 12. The called race, he called Abraham out. And then, of course, there's Isaac and there's Jacob. And yet, even though he had the called race, still there was no dwelling place for him. You know what the closest thing of the dwelling place, what it was? In Genesis 28, Jacob had a dream. And in that dream, he saw a ladder set up. And the angels were ascending and descending on that ladder. And he got up and he said, this place is awesome. He said, this is none other than the house of God. And he set up the stone that was his pillow, and he poured oil on it. And it was that, from that time on, it was called Bethel, the house of God. Okay, but still, it was only a dream. Eventually, you know, the children of Israel multiplied, they went into Egypt, and they were in Egypt for 400 years or so, and they were in bad shape in Egypt. And they were under the taskmasters, and they were building, you know, the treasure cities of Pharaoh. And God came in, called them out. And so this is kind of where we started tonight. He called them out, and he, of course, just like the brother said, he gave them Moses, and eventually he led them out. But eventually, the first step in the fulfillment of that dream that Jacob had in Genesis 28 was the tabernacle. That was the first step. And this is the second stage, is the tabernacle, which is kind of where we are in Exodus now. And so I want you to read Exodus 25, 8 and 9. Ready? Go.
And let them make a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell in their midst, according to all that I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings. Even so shall you make it.
You know, and if you read the verses before 8 and 9, it just describes all these materials. You know, gold, bronze, silver, and then, you know, types of cloth and things like that, all these different materials. And all this material was for the building of the tabernacle. But what does this signify? What this signifies is this material signifies the children of Israel themselves. And when they took this material and they built the tabernacle, it signifies that the children of Israel were built together as one dwelling place for God. Now you think about this. 2 million people were there in the wilderness. How many tabernacles were there? One small tabernacle. It was not even big. It was not grandiose. It was small. Wouldn't it have been easier, Asher gets one, Dan gets one, Judah gets one, Zebulun gets one, Issachar gets one, all the different tribes get one? No. One tabernacle, one body. Just they were there as one man, as a dwelling place for God in the wilderness there. And so, you look at that tabernacle, and this is an important point. I really want you to hear this. You look at that tabernacle and you go, so small. The Holy of Holies was 10 by 10 by 10. That's very small. And you looked at it outwardly and it was like, ram skins dyed red. And wait a minute, porpoise skins. Wait a minute, goat's hair? And you look at it, and outwardly, if you just looked at it in an outward way, you'd think, man, I don't know. I'm not sure. But listen, there was something deep within the tabernacle that was golden. And when you got inside the tabernacle, all there was gold overlaid on all the different things. And there was beautiful linen embroidered and everything like that. So what you would get when you went in, listen to what you get, and just write these things down, what you get when you go into the tabernacle. God's presence. Okay, if you just looked at it outwardly, you might miss it. You might think, but God's presence was there. Okay, let me tell you what else there was there. God's glory was there. What else was there? God's speaking. What else was there? God's light. What else was there? God's life supply. Okay? All this was there in the tabernacle. But if you just had an eye for the outward things, you'd go, I don't think there's much here. Sometimes people come to our meetings and I asked this one sister one time, I said, so what was it you didn't like about our meetings? And she was really quick to tell me, I don't like the singing. And it's okay. I mean, I understood. She came from a background where she was sang in a chorus and was kind of professionally trained and everything like that. And so to us, it was just a little tabernacle. It wasn't much, And but eventually, this same sister that didn't like the singing, now, if you asked her, what about the church? She'd say, glorious. I get the life supply when I come to the meetings. I get God's presence when I come to the meetings. In other words, what I want to just say to you is, don't miss the inward riches by looking at something outward. Hannah, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but sometimes some of the older sisters, they wear like a little thing on their head. Do you ever see that? Maybe you didn't see it. Maybe some of y'all have noticed that. They wear a head covering. It's in the Bible, believe it or not. And they wear a head covering. But you might look, what's that? What are they wearing a head covering for? And, how come I come here and, other places I've gone, they have like great musical instruments, electric, and spotlights, and an organ, and all these things, and I come here and it's just 4 or 5 guitars, and you just are looking at the outward. What I'm saying to you is, don't miss the inward. Okay, so I'm asking the young Sarah again. Hey, young Sarah, haven't you touched, since you've been here, God's presence? Haven't you touched God's life supply? Haven't you touched the glory since you've been here? I mean, I could tell, you gave your testimony 3 or 4 weeks ago here, and I realized that little girl has been changed. That is for sure. Something happened. You know what happened? You got inside. Okay, and when you get inside, that's what changes you. Outwardly, there's always going to be some sister that's going to bother you. Or there's going to be some brother, why is he so loud in the meeting? Or there's going to be another one, this brother, why he always gets up and gives these long testimonies and he won't stop. And it's like, he's just in his mind. That's all there is to it. And guess what? You're in your mind right there. Don't miss the glory. Don't miss the presence of God. Don't miss the light. Don't miss the life supply. When you touch the tabernacle, you touch a place where God's speaking is. And so, tabernacle, big, big deal. Big deal, okay? Now, the next one is the temple in the good land. Now, here's something interesting about the temple. I had to look up all these verses about, it was enlarged. The Holy of Holies now was not 10 by 10 by 10, it was 20 by 20 by 20. And instead of having one laver, guess how many lavers they had? 10. And there was this thing called a molten sea. It was kind of like a little swimming pool. And that was the big laver there. And it was like, it was definitely an enlargement there, an expansion. Okay, then guess how many showbread tables there were? In the tabernacle, it was just one showbread table. You know how many there were in the temple? 10. 10 showbread tables. If you want to know, you can come up here and I'll show you the verses. I've got them written down here. Okay, I'm not making this up. Okay, and then, in the tabernacle there was one lampstand. Do you know how many lampstands there were in the temple? 10. Okay, so think about that. What an expansion. What an enlargement. And what this shows us is that our experience of God's dwelling place should always be expanding. More and more. It's like, Estrella, you might be in the tabernacle with just one lampstand now. It's pretty good though. And one showbread table, it's pretty good, isn't it? It really is. But what we hope in a few years, you'll be expanded to touch the temple church life, where it's not just one table, but 10 tables. Not one lampstand, but 10 lampstands. In other words, our experience of Christ in the temple church life should always be progressing and expanding. And so the tabernacle, it was portable. When it was time to get up and go, they would just pull up, and different people carried the different parts of it. But once you got into the good land, that temple was solid. And it was there, it remained. It was something that was just there, and it was not portable anymore. So the temple is a big, big deal. Well, that's great, okay, but then you come to the New Testament, and the New Testament is the fourth stage. And what do you have in the New Testament? You have the church in the New Testament, okay? So we already read these verses, but I'll just read them again. The house of God, which is the church of the living God. And then you yourselves also, 1 Peter 2:5, as living stones are being built up as a spiritual house. Okay, so, Jose came in late. And so, Jose, I was telling him a little story about you and how the brother asked, Jose, what are you?
A living stone?
Yes! You remember, right? And then another brother came up to you, and what did he say to you?
That was Neil.
Oh.
That was good. Maybe next time you can add, I'm a living stone for God's building.
Yay! You see, so he confirmed what I said. I wasn't just telling a story about him. It actually happened, right, Jose? And so here's the thing. Again, you see from this, okay, the Christian life is not an individual life. Yes, we do need to have a personal time with the Lord, and I'm absolutely for that. And our time in the Word in the morning is so critical. But we also have to live in a corporate way and be built with other believers. Okay, so, you think about it. How can we be built with other believers? Okay, so I'm going to put this question to you. how can we be built with other believers? And I don't mean that you go play volleyball with them. Okay? I'm not talking about that. How do you literally get built with other believers? And I just open it to you. It's not on the sheet. Anybody? Come on, somebody can say. This.
Fellowship.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's stop with that first one. What did you say?
Fellowship.
No, before that.
Prayer. Just prayer. I didn't say prayer. Someone else said that.
Oh, okay. But anyways, the thing is, when you pray with another person and touch the Lord, building takes place. Building takes place. You know, I came here early tonight, and the Gadar singers, they were here. I really appreciate it. They spent some time to pray. You know, so it's not just 4 or 5 individuals standing up here. They were built. And then even after they practiced, they had a little time of prayer. And I was so impressed with that. One big way to get built with other believers is to pray with them. And so, you know, a lot of times I'm in an appointment on the campus, and the Lord will just be in me, touching me. You need to pray before we get into the Word. Or you need to pray before, you know, you read this portion of the ministry or something like that. And sometimes I just, you know, because I'm so impetuous, I just want to get to the ministry. And so I'll just kind of run through the red light, and you pay for it when you run through the red light. The Lord, all the time, is trying to stop. Don't be so quick. Pray with the brother. Pray with the brothers. The building takes place when we pray together in the Spirit. It really takes place. Okay, that's one. Okay, how about another way that we can be built together? But prayer is a big one. Big one. What's that?
Reading.
Reading what?
The Bible.
Okay. Yeah, reading the Word together. Isn't that a great way? You know, in our home meeting, that's one of the things we do, is just read the Word together. Yeah, it's a great way to be built. Okay, anything else?
Worship.
Okay, so could you maybe define, who said worship? Yeah, okay, so define it a little bit more, what you mean by worship.
Praising the Lord.
Praising, okay, very good, praising. Ian? Oh, did you hear that? That's really good. So explain that a little bit to us, Ian. Very good. Bearing one another's burdens in love, right? Yeah. Anyways, bearing one another's burden, big way. You know, one of the hardest things when we're with one another is to open up our problems. I don't want anybody to know I have problems. And you don't want anybody to know you have problems. You're just a great brother or a great sister in the church life. And Josh Fick, you don't have any problems, do you? Daniel Fan, you have no problems, do you? I mean, there's Daniel Jang. The man is an overcomer. You have no problems, right? No problems. You know what? I want to tell you something. Every one of us has problems. You're lying if you say you don't have a problem. Every one of us. And so when we open to one another, and I'm not saying it's easy, but when we open to one another and we bear one another's burdens, you know, I'll tell you, the Lord does something to build us together. The Lord just does something to build us together. So these are some good ways to be built together, because we don't want to be just a living stone. We want to be a living stone for God's building. Okay, then the last point is the New Jerusalem, God's tabernacle with man for eternity. Could you all read those 2 verses there?
And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. And I heard a loud voice out of the throne saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men.
Right. Okay, so eventually this New Jerusalem is actually the tabernacle of God with men. And in the New Jerusalem, do you know there's 12 foundations and 12 gates? And the 12 gates, what are the different names on those gates? 12 tribes of Israel. And then the foundations are the 12 apostles. And so this shows us that the New Jerusalem is made up of all of God's people, both from the Old Testament and the New Testament, built together in Christ, and becomes a city for eternity. And when you touch that city, there's the tree of life, there's a water of life, there's a golden way. I mean, and there's and that tree, listen to this, has new fruit every month. That means it never gets old in the New Jerusalem. Never gets old.